Hello, today's video I want to talk about real basic of NumPy. I have tried to use NumPy for a while without really understanding what really basic foundation was, and I decided to learn it, and it was quite helpful. So I want to share this on YouTube for just reinforcing the things I've learned and maybe for the people who might find this helpful. So let's get to it. So what is NumPy? NumPy is a fundamental package for scientific computing in Python. It is a Python library that provides a multi-dimensional array and also a lot of collections for fast operations on array. And there are things that you must need to understand, which is the main core of the NumPy. It is ND array objects. ND array object is the array class of NumPy, and in everything in NumPy is mostly just array. This involves array, so you need to understand that. There are several important differences between NumPy arrays and Python sequences like lists and tuples, which is NumPy arrays have a fixed size at creation. It means once array is defined, the space it occupies in memory is fixed and cannot be changed. And the elements in a NumPy array are all required to be of the same data type, which means it can only have the one data type. So in list, in Python list, it can have number and it can have string in one list, but in NumPy array, it needs to be just one data type. If it is integer and a float, whatever it is. So to actually use NumPy, you need to install NumPy. In the official documentation, it says it's best to install NumPy through the Anaconda, which has all the other packages like Matplotlib library as well. However, we are going to use PIP because I'm not using Anaconda version of Python. So let's install it. First, PIP and install NumPy. Now it says requirement already satisfied. Because I have NumPy installed on my computer, that's why it says it, but for you guys who doesn't have it, maybe should install NumPy correctly. Okay, now for the basics of NumPy. Now let's actually write some code. So first thing is first. As I said before, the main concept of NumPy is ND array object. It's array class of NumPy. NumPy array can have many dimensions, but here I will just cover up until 3 dimensions. And in NumPy, each NumPy dimensions are called axes. I will explain it using the drawing I drew here and code on JupyterLab. Let's first make one dimension array, which is one axis because each dimension in NumPy is axis. Here, to actually use NumPy, we need to import it, and then we are going to declare the variable np.array is 1, 2, 3. So here we've created NumPy array. It is first dimension. So if you look at the drawing, the way it will look like is like this. It has 3 elements in it, and it has just one axis, right? And you can check the dimensions by using the ND array objects attributes ndim, which stands for number of dimensions, and it says 1 dimensions, right? So now let's look at the 2-dimension. Let's create a 2-dimensional arrays. A.np array and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and A. Now you look at it, now here it has first row and second row, right? There are 2 rows. And if you check the number of dimensions here, it says 2 dimensions. And the way how the data looks is something like this. It has one axis and it has another axis, which is 2 axes, so it will look like this: 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. And the way the code represents is same: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it is 2 dimensions. Now let's look at the most confused one, at least for me. This was the most hard for me to understand it, which is a three-dimensional array. So let's create a three-dimensional array first. So a.np array, it will have so many brackets, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope I'm correct. And then 7, 8, 9. This is really confusing because it involves a lot of brackets. I might need to add another bracket here and here as well. So right. Now you can see, let's check the dimensions first. It says 3 dimensions, right? It has 2 of 2 dimensions. Here is the first 2 dimension, here is the second 2 dimensions, and that makes up to 3-dimensional array. So because there are so many brackets, it's really hard to understand. So let's look at the drawing that I drew. So it's fairly easy to understand if you look at this way. There is the first 2 dimension, and there's another 2 dimensions, and if you stack it up together, so here it should be 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't matter. So there are two of 2 dimensions are stacked up, so that makes 1 axis and 2 axes, and there are 3 axes. So the 3 axis means 3 dimensions. So if you look at this, so this is more of a, how to say, more realistic. It resembles more to the object that we look at when we look at every day, right? So this is 3-dimensional array of NumPy. Okay, now move on to the attributes of ND array objects. So we are going to just look at some important ones. Let's first do np.arrange. np.arrange will create an array from 0 to the value that you give to it. Here we will make 15 elements from 0 to 14, okay? So now you just give the 15. So we are going to make 15 elements from 0 to 14, and we are going to reshape it to the 3 by 4, which means 3 rows and 5 columns. And if you check it, now you can see two-dimensional array, right? And we can check it. Now we can use the attribute shape to check the shape of NumPy array by a.shape. Now it says 3 rows. The first one means rows, and the second one means column. And then we can also use a.enddim, which we've used just before. It says it returns number of dimensions, and we can also check for each element's size. This is in bytes, so with every element is 8 bytes. And we can also check for total number of elements in an array by a.size, and it returns 15. There are 5, 5, 5. It adds up to 15, right? So there are 15 elements to it. And if you check the type of A, and it says numpy.nd array. So this, and as I said before, nd array object is array class of NumPy. So, okay. And now let's move on to the array creation. So there are multiple mechanisms to make NumPy array, but the most common one is conversion from array-like object, which is like list or tuple in Python. And also you can actually use the built-in functions to create an array. First, let's convert it from list, okay? So here x.np array, and we will return list into the NumPy array. So if you look at it now, it is the type of X is NumPy.array, right? And then what is type of this? Is just list. So what we did was we just turned list into numpy.end array class, okay? And we can also convert tuple into NumPy array. Let's do it again. Here we will pass the tuple, and now it turned into the NumPy array as well, right? And as I said, we can also use built-in functions. Here I will use np.zeros. This will basically create the number of zeros, and the number you can set the value for it. So let's say here I will say 15, and it will make 15 elements of array. And you can of course reshape it, maybe to 3 to 5, yeah, and it will look like this. But here you have to know it will not affect the like X, the original array. If you check it again, it will just return the converted value, not really affecting original array. And you can also use the np1s, which is basically same as zeros. It will return it just full of ones that you give the value to. And you can use the np.arrange. We've used this before, right? You can set the value, you know, like here we do 20, and it will create the 20 elements starting from 0, incrementing by 1. So here 0 to 19, so including 0 is 20 elements, right? And finally, we can also use np.linspace. Here you can set the starting value, and then you can set the stop value. And cool thing about this, you can actually set the number of elements to be in these values, within these values. So here, if I give the number of 25, it will create 25 elements starting from 2 to 50, and every element is evenly spaced. So it will be 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. And you can look at the array, and it returned the array that we wanted. So that is it for today. I hope you guys find this helpful. At least it was helpful for me. And of course, I'm a beginner student who wants to be a developer. So I'm pretty sure the explanations I have given to you is not very clear, but I will try my best. I've tried my best, and I will try my best to answer the things that you guys not understand. So please just leave the comment down below, and I will try my best to answer it. Thank you.